I'm gonna try and project.
Should I hide behind a pillow and then be like,
Pretend Courtney is
you
not
can go in
here
front of
now.
me. Come in front of me.
Right, it's fun to like hear me talk about you. Okay, so Courtney Maum is the author of the novels Costa Alegre, I Am Having So Much Fun Here Without You, and Touch, and the handbook Before and After the Book Deal, which she's here with tonight. Courtney's writing has been widely published in outlets such as the New York Times, Poets and Writers. She's the founder of the collaborative retreat program, The Cabins, and has an amazing newsletter that you can sign up for on her website called Get Published, Stay Published. And we're so excited to have her here tonight.
Thank you. Alright, I'm going to see if I can sit on this without falling off. I don't know.
You can also use one of these chairs.
Right, I could. Oh, that's great. Well, it's great for you. I don't know.
It's perfect.
Does it? Okay.
Yeah.
It's just my posture, my bad posture will exasperate. All right, let's go. Hi, everyone. It's nice for me to be back in Providence. I went to college in Providence many, many moons ago, and some things have changed, some things haven't. I took myself to Apsara tonight. Yeah, was where I went almost every single Friday of my freshman and sophomore year, and even the prices haven't changed. Food is still really great, so it's fun. I want to start off, what I'm hoping to do, I'm going to talk a tiny little bit about my journey. I'm going to share the top 3 things that surprised me the most, and then we're going to talk about your burning questions. But before we do any of that, I was hoping that those who are willing to share could say hi, talk a little bit about your writing journeys, where you are in your writing and reading, maybe why you're here tonight. Not everyone has to speak, but I thought it'd be a nice thing to do. We can get to know each other a little bit. So would anyone like to share?
Day student sitting right here.
Okay. Does that mean you're not committed yet?
It's a matter of dollars and cents.
Yeah. Well, it is. Okay, so some MFAers. Anyone else? Who here has an MFA? I don't, so I'm not raising my hand. Good. Okay. Just 2 people. 3. Some people are lying. Okay. Who here is currently working on something that they'd love to get an agent for? Okay. Quite a few of you. Does anyone here have or has worked with an agent in the past? I'm on 3, number 3. Okay. Anyone else? Feel free, raise your hand a little bit and just.
I'll share.
Okay, great.
So I've always been involved in writing nonfiction for work, and I'm just starting to get interested and learn about writing fiction. So.
Oh, great. Crossover.
Yep.
Fantastic. Who else?
So I've got a 20 blah 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 year career in communications,
Okay.
publications, and I've always focused on my energy writing for that type of stuff, but also have done spats of creative nonfiction, etc. And now I've got like these 3 ideas in my head that I'm kind of wrestling to get out. So I'm trying to do everything I can to foster
Yeah.
getting them out.
Does anyone else, who here has lots of ideas and is wondering how do you decide which one to commit to? Anyone else? A couple people? Who else would like to share? Yeah.
So I have an MA, not an
Yeah.
MFA. I'm working on a travel-ish memoir, and I don't know if you know Allison Wilson, but I had an editor look at it and got positive feedback, but it's like now you gotta build your platform.
We're going to
which
talk about the
everyone
platform.
loves, and so just thinking about that, and then finding an agent and all of that, which I find largely disconcerting.
Yeah.
It's no picnic.
No.
Who else? Yes.
I work as a copywriter, and I've been working on a novel for a few years, and have gotten some eyes on it, and trying to get get prepared for publication. So
Yeah.
I'm hoping to pitch agents in the next year or two.
Cool. Listen, copywriting is good. I've worked as a copywriter for 20 years. Now I work as a corporate namer. I name products and brands, but copywriting is for people who are thinking like, how can I use my writing in a way where I can actually earn some money. Copywriting is a great avenue because it tends to pay better than adjuncting, let's say, some teaching opportunities. But it also teaches you how to deliver high quality content, not just in terms of the content, but in terms of the way it's copy edited and whatnot, on time. And when you are going out to eventually look for an agent, or your agent shopping your stuff around for an editor, copywriting on your CV shows that you know how to deliver content under pressure. So just a side note, sort of sticking up for our mutual side fears. There's someone in the back, I think?
Yep, so I'm actually a copywriter with
Okay.
Alex.
Hey.
And so about 5 years ago, I lived in New York, and I went to a pitch session, and I was able to pitch. I have a book of personal essays, like
How
humor.
long did they give you, just out of curiosity?
Oh,
This is when you sit down with an
That's-
agent?
yeah. No, I'm sorry, with publishing.
With an
representative.
editor?
Yeah.
Oh, how
Yeah.
long did they give you?
I
to
think
pitch?
we're 8 minutes.
Yeah.
10 minutes. But I got some really, so like 2 of the 3 were like, oh, here's our card, blah, blah, blah. And then you leave and it's high, and it's like, all you need is an agent. And it just died on the vine. I mean, it was like, I would connect, and then and it's like, how much do I harass an agent?
Plenty.
Like, that's my story.
No, all you need, we're gonna talk about that tonight, because the myth of all you need is an agent was never true. It was actually what you need is a quality manuscript. But you also need, in this juncture in the road, the ability to revise by yourself, because top editors don't have time to edit anymore. We're gonna get into this, but, okay, yes.
So on the point of the ability to revise by yourself,
Yeah.
so I've written a manuscript, and I went actually to the Muse and Marketplace in
Yeah,
Boston.
sure, that's a great.
And I pitched a couple of agents, and I got feedback that what was sort of nonfiction narrative really needed to be fiction. So I actually wrote a novel. I converted that material into
Okay.
a novel.
The old
And-
conversion, yeah.
Converted it. And I'm with some writers groups, and 20 pages of fabulously focused, 20 pages at a time. But I'm at the point where I need a sort of big picture, sort of from start to finish editorial part.
Yeah.
So I'm working with somebody about trying to do that.
Great, yeah.
And then we'll go out again, trying to get an agent.
Yeah, well, that's a helpful, I mean, you have to find the right partner, but sometimes hiring an outside consultant or, private editor for a project before you send it out to agents or other editors is a really, really good move, because the agents don't have the time usually to give you the feedback.
Mhm.
All right, let me jump in to my bit. So, in Courtney, people come to the realization that they want to be a writer in different ways. I think I was someone who first, can everyone hear me? Am I being loud enough? Okay. I was someone who always wanted to be a writer. As soon as I always loved reading and hearing stories, and as soon as I could write in a somewhat legible, it was legible to me. I had a lot of unicorn-themed work that I put together. And then in terms of trajectory, the way that I think a lot of American authors come to be published, I don't think that I have a very typical trajectory. I did not major in English. I went to college, but I didn't major in English. I majored in comparative literature and French to English translation. And right after college, I moved to France, where I thought I would be working in translation, and ended up being a party promoter for Corona. That's how I got job. So I was writing, I was always writing, but I had no connections. I had no writer friends, didn't have the high-placed, fancy literary friends. I had none of that because I hadn't, partly because I hadn't majored in English, but also because I didn't take any creative writing classes or anything like that. So when I finally had, by the time I moved back to the United States, we were living in the Berkshires, in a really rural part of the, already rural Berkshires, in a log cabin in the woods, and then things were even worse, you know, I thought, oh God. But by that time, I think I was 28 or something. I was already married, and it really wasn't until then that I realized that, God, most people have MFAs, it seems like. The idea of, I mean, the cost, and I mean, it just seems ridiculous. So I ended up sort of doing a DIY, build my own writing community type of thing that we can talk about later. But I've had three, well, I'm on my third literary agent. I hope that she stays with me forever. She's the right one, but I am on my third. Before I started publishing in the traditional sense, I self-published a collection of short stories, so we can talk about that later. I'm with some caveats and pro self-publishing. I have a chapbook out with a micro press, and then my first, you know, my debut came out with Simon & Schuster, and then my editor there moved to Penguin Random House and asked me to come with her, so my second book came out with Penguin Random House. And then I pivoted, and I went with the indies. I started doing projects that were slightly less commercial, I don't know, riskier. My third novel has illustrations in it, so they freaked out and said it has to be with an indie, because how could we possibly, you know, market this otherwise? So my third book, Costa Alegre, which was just out, it like just came out this summer, is with Tin House, and then this book is also with an indie with Catapult. So over all of these different books, one thing that was just so clear to me, clear and at the same time incredibly opaque, was that for people who dream of having a book published, there's a lot of help, support, writers' conferences, private classes, craft books a go-go to help you write better, perhaps help you learn to revise. Everything is leading towards get an agent, get a book deal, and then the minute you realize your dreams and get a book deal, there's nothing. I'm telling you, there's nothing out there in terms, there's 2 C's here, right here. There's nothing. I mean, once in a while you might see some class about like how to build your newsletter or how to pump up your platform, but this is just dancing around the real issues, which are what does it feel like and look like on a daily basis on something you've been working on privately for years, in some case a decade, maybe even more, becomes public. There's nothing that prepares you for that psychosomatic shift, and also the daily ins and outs of the timelines, the kind of things that are going to come at you, and you didn't know, like the best of year lists. When my first book came out, I had no idea that they were, until I realized that I wasn't on some of them. You know, I was on some of them, but not, you know, but these things come at you. And so the seed of this idea was planted when my first book came out, when my first book, you know, it's a debut, they don't know how it will perform, especially because I was coming from nowhere, I didn't have an MFA thing, I didn't have tons of fancy bylines, and so they didn't have a lot of expectations, but that book did really well. And the lead up to that book, I don't know, I was just imagining, I don't know, like Dolly Parton on tour. Like it seemed like, what it seemed like the publication process was going to be like, and then what it was actually like was so, even for a book that was successful, was so jarring that that's when I got the idea to write this book. But you know, I waited until I had some more experience, and then what I did was fill it with interviews with almost 200 other people, not just writers, agents, foreign book scouts, Hollywood agents, editors, translators, voiceover actors. Like, I tried to make this as exhaustive as I possibly could so that it covers the before and after. So for people who are still in the process of learning to revise, get something ready for an agent's eyes, you'll find really good advice in here, and then you can hold on to the same book when you finally get an agent and then a book deal. And then for people who already have a book out, this book, I'm pretty sure, is the first one that talks about, you know, taboo things like money, competition and jealousy, depression, substance abuse, happier things too. It's like success, like how to deal with success, and people aren't taught how to deal with it, you know. Even, like, we have really practical information on here about not using I love jelly beans as your social media handle, because when you win the National Book Award, people are like, and you can find her on I love jelly beans, you know. Things to think about. There's, you know, other stuff like to buy up your author website name on GoDaddy, which honestly, as a copywriter, why did someone name that GoDaddy? But to buy it up before you even have a book, because you don't want to find out that your name, you know, either they're selling vacuum cleaners or porn or something. You want your name. Right. So that's why I wrote this book and interviewed so many people for it. And so I want to share the 3 things that most surprised me. No, I'm getting serious because I'm putting on my glasses. All right. So number 1 was the agent thing, right? Like you, I thought you get an agent. Well, you're basically getting in the ship taken to the Mars, you know. You get your own security detail and you're just ready to go. That's it. You get the agent and you get a book, right? You're published. You're basically published if you get an agent. That's what I thought. And also, like most people, honestly, I don't really know anyone who wasn't in this case. By the time you're ready for an agent, you've been exposed to so much rejection that when someone says yes to you, I believe in you, I want to help you, there's no fiber in your being that says, well, hey now, let's slow down, you're moving pretty quickly. I have a couple questions. I'm gonna lawyer or whatever. You don't, most of the time you say yes, right? So, yeah, I'm gonna read you a little section about, I suppose, what happened to me when I said yes to the dress a little quickly. Let's see. This isn't a big section in here about, don't worry about that, I'll get it in a second. I'm just gonna drop stuff. A big section in here about agents. The mistake I made with my first 2 agents was that I was looking for a friend instead of a business partner. We liked the same kind of craft beer, were exasperated by the same trends, thought the same weird things were funny. It would never occur to me to seek out a like-minded personality in my accountant or my dentist, and yet it mattered greatly to me that my first literary agent could also be my pal. It took years of rejected manuscript submissions for me to realize that in addition to being friendly, I also needed an agent to sell my freaking books. Obviously, you and your agent need to get along, and you should share the same sense of humor and intellectual interest, because your writing reflects your aesthetics, and your writing is what your agent is there to sell. But your agent also needs to make up for the social skills you lack. If you're a timid person, it might feel contradictory to hire someone bold, but chutzpah is an essential agent quality. If you hate your book cover, your agent can suit up for this battle with your editor. If there isn't a marketing budget allotted to your project, she can argue to get one. If your publisher is asking you to travel for promotional purposes with no plans to cover your expenses, your agent can shame them into reimbursing you. Or try. If there's a prize you think your book is eligible for, your agent can convince the publisher to cover the submission costs. These are just a few examples of the awkward conversations you'll need your literary agent to start. So think hard before you hire an agent, because they're just so nice. Agents are knights in shining armor, and effective knights do not go into battle on flam. So I had one agent. They didn't usually represent books. My genre is sort of satirical literary fiction. He did mysteries and thrillers, but I don't know, he liked my book, so I thought that was great, and he couldn't sell it. And then my second agent had such an amazing sensibility and aesthetic, but she treated me like an assistant and would call me and say, "Oh, you remember if we submitted to this place or that place?" That was good. My third agent is my one true love. But in having all these different agents, I just lost a pen. What did I do? Launch it on the ground?
Eyeglass case.
You think it's in my eyeglass?
It's a little quiz.
You think so too?
Yep.
Hey. I'll blurb your book when it finally I imagine that in the Q&A part we'll talk about agents later, but I have come to a place now where I realize that as much as sort of wildly egotistical as it will feel, if someone does want to work with you as an agent, if you get an offer of representation, it is certainly in your purview, but also it's kind of your duty to make sure that you will have a fruitful partnership. This person is working for you. They take 15% of basically everything you earn for your time together. And so if, for example, you end up with an agent who has a completely different working style than you, and by that I mean, let's say that you're the kind of person that sends not a lot of emails, maybe 2 or 3 a week with important questions, and your agent doesn't really do email, that's going to be a problem. If you are the type of person like me with a lot of different projects in your head, and some which don't fall into the same world, like my first 2 books were sort of literary rom-coms, my third is historical fiction.